Feist and Andy Iskoe in Las Vegas doing the ATS show for June 11th, 2025, in case you didn't know what day and month and date it was. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, Jim. Hope you've had a good few days and getting set for, Game 3 tonight between OKC, the all-important Game 3 between
Yeah,
OKC
they're
and
all
Indiana.
important until you lose that fourth one.
Yeah.
The last couple, let's see, I had today's Tuesday. No, today's
Wednesday.
So in the last 5 days, I've had 4-1, 4-0, 1-4, 5-2, and yesterday was 5-4. So it's been a pretty good run.
You should have gone. You should have taken a day off in between the two winners and the two winners.
Yeah, the problem
Easy
is
to say now.
Don't know which ones it should be.
It's like I tell people when we bet, like let's say in football, and I'll use the contest as an example. When you make 5 plays, you got to make 5 plays a week. You hope you'll go, or you expect to go 3-2, but you don't know which will be the 3 winners and which will be the 2 losers. But you hope to go 3-2, just like over the course of a week. Let's say in baseball, you hope to go 15-7, but you don't know what are going to be the 15 or what are going to be the 7. Otherwise, you wouldn't have played the 7. But that's all part of why it's gambling, and why. I mention it all the time. Bookie's advantage is the vig. Our advantage is selectivity.
Absolutely. And the thing is, but contests, if you go 3-2, you're never going to win any money.
Well, yeah, these days you're not with the size of the fields, and they don't have exactly a huge payoff schedule. But that's the minimum. That's what you need to do. I mean, the goal is to go 3-2 and throw in maybe 3 4-1s and maybe a 5-0 in there somewhere, and all of a sudden your 60%, which is 3-2, gets up there to 66, 67, because you're lowering the number of losses by increasing the number of wins with the 4-1s versus the 3-2. You're going from +1, 3-2 to +3, 4-1. That adds up. That has a significant impact on the percentages when you're talking about in these contests that go 18 weeks. You're making 90 picks. That has a significant impact. And maybe that'll be one of the, I guess at some point, maybe we can take a look at contest strategy as opposed to money management, because so many people are involved in these contests, not just in Las Vegas, but online. In fact, I was going to ask you, Jim, if you saw the email I sent you about remember we were talking about the tax in Illinois?
Yeah, well, I read it. And a matter of fact, I've made comments at different points already. We can start off with that, but in money management is kind of a boring subject, in my opinion. I know it's very important. It's actually just as important as picking winners, because if you don't manage your money, you can go 4-1 and still go broke.
It's who you bet and how you bet.
Yeah. So, but it's kind of like maybe a better title would be "How Not to Go Broke."
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
Maybe that would attract more attention.
With a little asterisk, and the asterisk at the bottom is identified without giving up betting.
Yeah.
How do you go broke? Don't bet. How do you not go broke? Don't bet. But that's not the idea.
You brought it up, and we've talked about it. And then the other day, FanDuel did something. Yeah. Illinois, we'll go back to this again in case somebody hasn't heard this. By the way, this is Proline TV on YouTube, and we love to get your comments, your criticisms. Like, share, and make sure you tap the little bell so you know when this stuff's coming up. And we do a lot of videos, shorts and longs, and great content. Great, awesome content. And we're going to be introducing a Patreon to this, because we're going to be doing contests where you can actually win something. And you can join the channel also on YouTube, because there's a lot of extra content for people to join. So we're doing a lot of things. We're evolving.
And by the way, there's also archived content for certain subjects that people may have missed. And when you got some time, you want to go back and take a look at the archives, there might be a subject that hits your mind? Or, maybe someone wants to go back, for example, I believe it's archived, and let's say they want to go back and see what did all the guys think about the, prior to the Super Bowl, what the thoughts they were looking at, things like that, just to get an idea of things in the past where they know the events and see how we've approached it and whether we were correct, whether we were wrong, whether we won but not for the reasons we thought, or whether we lost but the reasons we had were valid.
Excellent point. Absolutely. Illinois passed a law where the first 20,000 bets, is it 20,000 bets or is it 20 million bets? But a 20, whatever.
20 million. Yeah.
20 million bets. They're going to charge, and I call it like a tariff or a surcharge, 25 cents before, if win or lose, to make the bet, you got to pay 25 cents.
It's like a resort fee for making a bet, basically.
Well, yeah,
it's got nothing to do with the service you're getting.
We have resort fees here in Vegas.
Yeah.
I don't know if they do everywhere, but they're
starting
that
to.
bullshit here.
Yeah.
The casinos are doing everything possible to make it more uncomfortable to go there, more expensive and more uncomfortable, which is, I hate that. I hate when the suits and the corporate brain trusts think that they can just charge anything they want forever and drive everybody away. We're going to get into this subject, but anyway, that's a personal thing. Well, it's not personal. It's just really real. But anyway, that's what Illinois did. And then FanDuel comes along and says, oh, we're going to do one better than that. We're going to charge 50 cents to make a bet on every bet.
We're basically going to pass along the state law tax to our customers. That's basically what they're doing. We're not going to absorb the cost.
And remember, their customers are the books, not the bettors like you and I. However,
well, no, that's what I'm saying. That's what FanDuel is going to do. It's going to pass it along to the client.
Now, the client,
the bettor, I should say,
they're going to end up having to pass that cost on to the bettor in some way, shape, or form, in taking bonuses off or taking away promotions or whatever the hell they can do. They're not going to just absorb it. So it goes down the line. You're going to charge me, I'm going to charge them, and then it gets really ridiculous. It's kind of like the ticket broker. He goes and he buys the tickets for $35 to see this great act, and then that ticket broker knows that they're really popular, so he sells them for $350. So it's kind of like everybody markup, and basically they just rob the public. And the public always pays. I hate it. They did it in horse racing by taking it out of the betting pool. It was a little different how they did it. But you can go back 50 years when I used to own horses. And eventually they made horse racing really dissolve as a popular sport because they took so much away from your win pool that it made it harder and harder to win any money. Well, if you keep doing it, there's a point in the sand. There's a line in the sand. You cross that line, then okay, now the beneficiaries of this garbage that these states are doing are the local bookmakers and the offshore bookmakers. And eventually, if they continue this, and I expect they will, because it's a domino effect. One state does it, next some does it, and they do it, and they do it, and then eventually it gets ridiculous. And so the offshores and the local street corner bookmakers are going to benefit from this eventually and probably immediately. Here's the problem. If you're a $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 bettor, paying 50 cents to make a bet, maybe not, you're not going to even see it. You're not going to feel it. You're not going to see it. But the guy that's betting $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, man, that adds up. You make 10 bets on a weekend in football. Well, let's say 10 for college and 10 for pro. That's 20. That's $10 if you're paying 50 cents each.
Yeah.
That's part of your bankroll. You just diminished your bankroll.
If you're making a $1 bet, you're paying a 50% tax with the 50 cents that you got to pay to make the bet. Wow. I'm going to put a little bit of difference because you sort of bring something up. You talk about horse racing, and because they take it out of the pool, the public doesn't really notice it because they don't know that if they didn't take out anything, instead of getting paid $4 for a winning horse bet, they might get paid $6.50. But they see the $4 there, they see the tote bar, they know what they're getting, and they don't see it. It's the same thing now in the stock market, where most of these places now, they don't charge you a commission per se. They build it into the spread between the bid and the ask, and so you're actually paying a commission by the price that you pay for the stock. It's built into what you pay, but you don't see it, so you don't really mind it. Because again, it's like with the resort fee. I'll go back to that. Why not just put it into room rate? Okay, don't call it a resort fee. Just raise your room rate. But you see, when you have a resort fee, they can say, we didn't raise our room rates in 15 years. Yeah, but you increased your resort fee every month. So it's the perception, it's the psychology. Okay, I don't mind paying a higher room rate. You're entitled to make a profit, but don't charge me a resort fee as part of that. So you put it all into one item, then it's a little easier. It's the same thing with the wagering on the sports bet.
How about the airlines? The little fees that they charge?
Yeah. I mean, same thing. The baggage and everything.
Carry-on bag, this seat, that seat. I mean,
yeah,
it's
what they should do. What they charge for the bags, they say, okay, the price of your ticket, your round trip ticket, is going to be $350. If you don't check baggage, it's going to be $325. So at least you know that you're not going to pay more than $300. Oh, it's opposed to paying $300 for the ticket, and then you're paying another $30 for bags. Put it in at the higher price, and then give you a discount if you don't take advantage of it. Yeah, but people Andy, are, I think, much more comfortable that way.
Andy, you're talking about people being fair. They're not going to be fair.
No, but at least they can understand it a little better when. Yes, and we're seeing legislation that often doesn't go anywhere. Where they say just show the bottom line price at the start, and then don't add all the little extras in there.
I agree.
Because people are, I only pay $250 for an airline ticket. That's great. Yeah, but now we got to add the this fee or that fee or the other thing. Your $250 airfare fee turns out to be $330.
Now, all the consumers out there that listen to this, you do have a say. You elect these officials that put these people in power to make these decisions. You can write to your congressman, your senator, whether it's state, local, or federal, and complain. You have the right to do that. And as far as I know, that's the only other right you have is to just not bet. So, or offshore and local books. I mean, they're not going to charge you a tax, but that's a whole nother subject. And I'm not here to say what you should or shouldn't do, but I would at least complain to your elected officials that you're not happy with what's going on.
Now, the way that this will be, one of the ways this will be resolved will be through the old free market enterprise competitive system. A book, instead of charging minus 110, might now put in at minus 111 or minus 112. Again, you're hiding that little surcharge, but you're making it such that, okay, minus 110. We see it here in Vegas all the time, where a couple of properties, instead of laying 110, they'll have a night during the week where if you make a bet on a Thursday night, for example, between, let's say, 4 and 10 p.m., you only lay minus 105. So there are competitive pressures will cause you to go with the flow of the market. And I think that's one of the things that ultimately may happen here, is that it'll be, like you said, it may very well be, and it won't be well received. We're going to eliminate our bonuses to compensate. People don't like that because that's one of the things that attract people in.
I don't think they'll eliminate them, but I'm sure as hell guarantee they're going to reduce them. Yeah, they're going to do that. And so this is now. There's we have an NBA game that we should at least discuss here a little bit, because Game 3 is tonight. It's pretty obvious to me, and I think most people, that OKC is the better team. They have the same skill sets as Indiana has in regards to SGA is definitely a superior player. Halliburton is good, but he's not SGA. That's right. A point guard position. But at the other positions throughout the floor, other than the two massive big men that OKC has, it's a pretty evenly matched man-for-man series, except for the fact that they're and a lot of people will argue this, that the players on OKC are a little bit better, and their skill sets, even though they are similar, they do most things a little bit better, and their defense is far superior. Now, be that the first game, I mean, was sort of a fluke because Indiana only led by 3/10 of a second, and it was the last 3/10 of the second of the game, which is kind of crazy. But even though they lost game 2 and they were really never in the game to as far as to win it straight up, they only did lose to the spread by 4 or 5 points. So it wasn't that much of a difference to the spread. And it barely went over. They got to 230 and it was 228.
Well, the only thing, by the way, about that is that, they only lost a little bit to the spread, but they were behind by double digits, like between 9 and 13 for most of the game.
Almost immediately.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, they're better. But that was at home. Now they're going on the road. And here's the thing that I don't know how troubling this is or not, because everything has got to be taken with a grain of salt, especially on a short sample size. But OKC hasn't covered a spread on the road yet in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they do fall off a little bit. Now, here's the situation, though. Most of us believe and know that OKC is a superior team, and they won 18 more regular season games than Indiana did. But we now know if OKC is going to win this series, they're going to have to win one game in Indiana to do that, and then hold home court again. So at some point in time, this OKC team is going to have to get up and get over not only winning the game in Indiana, but covering it too. Now, tonight, we're looking at, it started, I think, 4.5.
Put it in an email so you can.
Then I saw some 6s as well. And the total is about 228 again, I think.
I just wanted to mention one thing here, because I think I put it in there. I went back because I sort of knew the numbers, but I wanted to verify them. And that is, in the NBA, much like in the NFL, the straight up winner of the game covers between 80 and 84% of the time. Okay. Now, obviously, some of those wins are by the underdog, where obviously they cover, but the others are when the favorite wins and also covers. The 15 to 20% of the time that the point spread comes into play is when the underdog loses the game but covers the spread, or said another way, where the favorite wins but doesn't cover. So, for example, Oklahoma State has won games on the road, but they just haven't covered. That's in that 15 to 20% of the time that it doesn't happen. But then again, also keep in mind that they've been laying decent number of points on the road. So one of the things to keep in mind is that if you like Oklahoma State, back to college basketball already, or football, can't get there quick enough. If you like Oklahoma City, you can do one of two things, and we can talk about it. I think we texted back and forth on this. Is you might take Indiana plus the points, which I think you could get 6 at some point in there, at least you could yesterday, and play Oklahoma City on the money line. But because it's about a 2-to-1 on the money line, maybe you play it, for example, with a big baseball favorite as well that has a huge thing. And basically, you do have a chance to win both, as long as the second half of the baseball parlay comes in. And then, of course, if the game falls, 1 through 1 through 5, 5.5, or 1 through 5, you'll cover with the points.
We did text back and forth about that yesterday. And I think that I even asked you if you thought that was an advisable position to take. I did take that position. Yeah. I did take the 6, and they did lay the money line. The thing is, you're laying such a big price on the money line, you're going to have to modify what you take on the other side. Easily could win both sides of that. I mean, it's a pretty big, wide gap between 0 and 6.
And the point that I made, by the way, was that you also now have, because of in-game wagering, you can manipulate things so that you can end up being a nice winner overall, regardless of the result. Although, see, now that probably couldn't really happen in game 2 because we didn't have the runs that we normally had. OKC was in control by roughly 9 to 13 points, a good portion of that game. But that's the atypical NBA game of the past few years. Usually there are opportunities, and because of the TV timeouts that go 2 to 3 minutes, you don't have to worry about being shut out, especially if you're using an app.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of ways to manipulate this, and get.
I shouldn't say manipulate. Manage. Manipulate has a negative connotation. Manage,
Okay.
I think, is a little bit of a better
I
description.
prefer your word. Manage is better. Now, we don't talk a whole lot about the WNBA, but I'm starting to see. Actually, I had 2 winners last night, and I've not had. I mean, they've only played. Each team has played about 8, 9, 10 games. So really, it's a quarter of the league. I mean, they only play 44 games, I think, for the whole season.
Yep.
But they really were never in sync. And new coaches, new players that got traded or drafted, and they didn't get in sync. I'm starting to see them get in sync. Now, I did a little short the other day on the Golden State Valkyries, and I'm very impressed with their coaching, their style, their tenacity, the way they play so hard. They can't hit a 3-point shot. I mean, I'm better at hitting 3-point shots than they are. Of course, nobody's guarding me, but they're terrible at that. But they play hard in other ways, and they win other metrics that you can measure, like 2-point shooting, 1-point shooting, defense, turnovers, things like that. So they do a lot of things positive. Now I'm reading, and this is a question because I don't really have this answer yet. I haven't done a deep dive into what the hell is Euro baskets and why are 3 players leaving this team to go play Euro baskets.
I do not have any idea whatsoever. I've not even been following that.
I saw a glip on this, and I did not have time to go look at it. I'm saying, what the hell is that? And where are they going? Are they coming back? Are they going away for a couple games to play in Europe? And because they're from Europe? I don't know what the hell this is. So I got to look at this because right now it looks like 3 players are going to be missing. And who are those players and how important are those players? It's going to affect depth. So where they're going to get all the minutes from, and I'm baffled.
Now, which team is this?
The Valkyries.
Valkyries. Okay.
So
now, my only thought would be is that possibly because it's an expansion franchise and it's relatively new, that maybe there was some prior commitments that they had made prior to joining the franchise that they have to go back to Europe for maybe the European teams that they play for, say in the winter or something. That would be my guess because it would make sense.
If anybody out there knows the answer to this, because Andy and I are obviously going to both be digging into this to try to figure this out because I just read it. And so now, if you know what the answer is, please send us a comment and let us know. It may help us out with this.
By the way, Jim, I have a question for you. Which was more impressive? The answer may seem to be obvious, but I don't know that it is. On Saturday, the Golden State Valkyries, 12.5-point underdogs, blitzed the Las Vegas Aces, winning 95-68. How impressive was that in comparison into what they did in their next game, where you would expect there to be a huge letdown, because that game was at home in Golden State, when they went into Los Angeles to play the Sparks. Not a very good team this year, but the Sparks were still a 7-point favorite, and Golden State won that game in overtime straight up.
Well, the answer is both were impressive. The only, however, to that is there's something wrong with the Aces on the surface. Before the season, they got rid of Kelsey Plum.
Right.
I didn't understand that because I didn't think they got enough back for her. She's really good. And she was a big part of the team. Now, was there a chemistry problem? Was there a personality problem with the coaches? You can't always find that stuff out. So was she, it's kind of like it's like the Tom Thibodeau thing. Some of the players didn't like the way he coached them and used all them so long in games, and other players liked it and liked him a lot and wanted to keep him. So now, is that going to divide that team? And I'm going to say, yes, it will.
Yeah.
So in this case, when getting rid of Plum, did that divide the team? Because she was a catalyst. And if you don't know this, she was the leading scorer in college before Caitlin Clark did that and followed up and took that away. So what happened there? Because they have not been consistent. They've had games they look absolutely horrendous. And then, of course, because they have one of the best, if not the best player in the league,
Asia Wilson.
The Aces bounce back frequently and play well. They're still one of the top 4 teams in the league, but they're inconsistent. So the answer to your question is they're both impressive. The coach for the Valkyries has done a great job getting them motivated, getting them to play fundamental, good basketball. They just don't shoot 3-point shots very well. They might shoot 320s or 23-point shots and hit 2. I mean, they're that bad, but they still find ways to win. Now we've got to dig into this garbage with the Euro baskets and what that means. But the answer, I'm very impressed with the coach, with their motivation, a brand new team. Now, let's back it up a little bit.
By the way, let me give you my answer, because I'm going to be a little bit different and say the Aces had been showing signs prior to that game that this was not the same team from the last few years, at least early in the season. So it was a nice win that Golden State had, and you're talking about whipping the team that had won 2 consecutive championships before not winning last year, but still making it into the the conference semifinals or whatever it was, or conference finals, I guess, before bowing out. But for them to then go on the road 2 days later after what had to be, well, there aren't that many historic wins in franchise history, but that certainly will still always be one of them, what they did. For them to respond with an effort, play as well as they did, and then get into overtime and win in overtime, I don't care if they were playing a strong team or a weak team. That's still very impressive, because if you are a situational handicapper, now I did not do this, I thought about it, but if you are a situational handicapper, that would have been a perfect spot to go against Golden State, with a team that, they were favored at home and they had been struggling, but this was an opponent that you would think, on theory, they should beat, basically because of the experience, even though Los Angeles lost a lot from last year's team. So it sort of went counter to the intuitive situation of, yes, Golden State was in a golden situation for being bet against, yet they came out and not only got the cover, they won the game outright. So I think that was and maybe even a little bit more impressive, because of the fact that psychology came into play with the second game after the big win.
That's very true. Both answers can be right.
Yeah.
Really. So I think that, bottom line for the WNBA, there's more games today. The teams are starting to round into shape after playing 8 or 10 or 9 games, and changing their lineups a little bit. The players are getting used to the coaches. Players are getting used to other players that weren't there a year ago. So we're starting to see a little more form, and I'm starting to get my confidence back, because last year was really good for me financially betting this league, but it wasn't good the beginning of this year. And that's probably a mistake on my part to not, well, I did modify my betting amounts. So I did cut back on my losses by being a little bit more
conservative.
Cautious. And so, anyway, now.
By the way, how are you handling Connecticut? Or are you avoiding them for the most part?
I don't know what to do.
Either play against them or avoid them. This is almost historically bad. I mean, they got to win the other night, and then they go out and lose by 30-something.
Well, first of all, this is not a deep team. I mean, they're one of the worst teams in the league, although I think Chicago looks pretty damn bad, too. What I do in some of this stuff is, when you have an A team like a Liberty or a Lynx going against a Chicago or
Connecticut,
the Sun, or any of the bad teams, like Dallas is pretty bad without Breckers being there. They've not played well. But look for your better team to do well in the first half. And look at your first half bets.
Yeah.
You might want to bet the bad team under their team total. You might want to lay the points in the first half with the better team, because in the second half, many times when this good team is up by a lot, they're going to back off. And they do, and they did last night. So I bet some first halves last night against the bad team in the first half, on the good team in the first half. And they paid off. And that's kind of something I've been looking at. And it works. Because you're not going to see these teams go all out when they're up 20 at the half. I mean, they're going to back off. There's no real motivation to fatigue your players. And see, this is the going back to Thibodeau, this is the problem that so many had with Thibodeau. He never gave his starters a rest. He never developed his bench. Well,
Exactly.
most coaches, and there's two different issues. A, you're wearing out your starters, and B,
Yep.
you're not developing your bench.
Most people, excuse me, Jim. Most people look at the fact that you're wearing down your starters, but I think what you just added is perhaps even more important. That when you need, because look, your starters sometimes get in foul trouble in the second quarter. You want to have a bench that is fully confident and capable of filling in.
Or when you're going up against a very deep team like the Pacers,
Yep.
who are going to wear you out running 9, 10 guys out there, and you're running 6, 7, you're going to wear your team is worn out and they're fresh. So this is where the you wonder, why is the man so stubborn?
Yeah.
To not see this and adjust, because he's been criticized forever for this, and that's part of the reason he got fired. Now, be that as it may, we're back to this here. Connecticut, Chicago, these are bad teams. However, some of them will develop because they still got another 30 games to play, and they're going to start to develop, and they're going to get a chemistry, and they're going to start, as long as they don't hit injuries, they will get better. And the odds makers will start valuing them less, which will give you more of a positive EBV by being on them. But for the time being, betting against them for half the game when they get absolutely obliterated in the first half of the game, and then only have a chance because they're playing against the backups for the better team, it gives you a little bit better chance. The same thing we do in baseball. When you like two pitchers and they're really good, you're better off not betting them for the 9 innings, because after 6 innings, they're not going to be around. Now your question is, who the hell's coming in from the bullpen? So the first 5 if you're betting first 5s with good pitchers, you can either bet a side or you can bet the under. And if you have bad pitchers, you might want to bet the first 5 over, because those guys are pretty bad and they're not going to hold anybody.
I actually like to look for for pitchers on teams that don't have great offense and they're bad teams, but the pitcher is in really, really good form to win the first 5 innings. When they're going up against a pitcher who's not in good form, a weak pitcher, where you have a significant advantage for the pitching for the bad team that's probably doesn't have as good an offense as the other team. Often it's on the road. I think I did it last night, and I don't remember if I didn't play it, but I consider Washington. Mackenzie Gore was in great form heading into their game yesterday against the Mets. The Mets had who was it? I think was it Canning last night? Yeah, Canning, who's been so-so, decent at times, but not. I don't rate him highly. But Gore was in really great shape. I couldn't bet Washington for the entire game. That I knew immediately, but I did consider him for the first half because I figured that ultimately the Mets would wear down against the lesser pitchers, whoever would follow Gore, and that it ended up working out that way. I'm going to go check and see what the score was if I ended up missing a winner
what
last
happened.
night.
The first 5 you'd have won with Washington, but then the Washington back end of their pitching staff gave it up and they lost the game. And absolutely, that's exactly what happened. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. That's a preferable way to bet if you're betting on or against pitchers, because you're not going to get that pitcher beyond 6 innings in 95% of the time. Yeah. So
I think we may do that when we do our money management or money management, not manipulation, money management. Go a little bit more into some of those theories there, as far as because it's supposed to be money management, but it's sort of part of how do you bet when you've got a quandary like that, where you've got like a weak team in a favorable situation or a weak team that doesn't have much of a bullpen, and when do you decide to play a first 5 versus a full game? But there could be different scenarios. Yeah,
absolutely. We have not talked much this year about college or pro football. One big issue happened this week, and it's big in either it's a fiasco or it's a gold mine. Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the most talented quarterbacks that's ever played the game in any era, the man was born with exceptional talent to throw the football and throw it accurately. And he has a great head for how to play football. He is a little bit of a difficult person to understand.
Would you say polarizing to some?
Yeah, that's a good word. But he did sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are not known for having a very good offense. And
Not since Roethlisberger retired, and that's what 7-8 years now, something like that.
Tomlin and all that stuff that goes on with the offensive coordinator and all the things. Aaron Rodgers is exceptionally talented. He's older. He's in his 40s. We don't know how much he has left. Is this a positive to not develop a younger guy? I mean, are there really this division is so hard. The players, the teams in this division are brutal. And with really, I think the best quarterback in the league is Burrow. Now the question is, can they?
And by the way, if you don't put Burrow as the best quarterback, then you're choosing between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson plays in that same division.
Yes. So
some would say Jalen Hurts.
Now you're putting a 40-some-year-old quarterback in a non-offensive team that really hasn't done much offensively for years. Now you do have a bigger weapon at quarterback if he's healthy enough, but he's got an attitude. He was like between I'm going to retire. I'm going to go on a ayahuasca and go for a dark retreat for whatever, and then he signed. So we don't know what we're getting there. If I'm Pittsburgh, I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't try to develop someone else. However, there is a however this. There are some people that say that there's some good draft choices coming up in this next round after this college football season
next year.
Yeah, and that may be why they only signed him to a 1-year deal.
I'm going to add a little bit of a different take to that. It's along the same lines, because I also think that yes, they are they giving up too soon on the future, or maybe just postponing it for a year? Because they have had quarterback issues. Remember, Tomlin's not won a playoff game since 2016? That's almost 10 years ago now. There are a lot of veterans on this Pittsburgh team who are getting towards the end of their career who have never experienced a playoff win. And we know how often they have made the playoffs. We know Tomlin's never had a losing season. I think his worst season was under the old 16-game schedule when he went 8-8. But otherwise, he's had winning seasons, but has failed in the playoffs. He's had early success when winning the early Super Bowl with a lot of the talent that he inherited from Bill Cowher, who retired, I think, after his last Super Bowl, which I think was 07 or 08, so 07, I guess it might have been. But in any event, or maybe 09, I think that was the Arizona game. But in any event, a lot of aging veterans on this team who want to win now and experience the opportunity for a Super Bowl, as opposed to a team maybe with younger players where they can afford to develop. So maybe Pittsburgh's thinking is that we finally have a chance. Let's at least have our old veterans, our guys who have been here for years and struggled through the playoff losses, get a chance to win. Maybe one of the backups right now, maybe it's Mason Rudolph, maybe it's the other kid they picked up. Maybe they can learn from Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they can develop a little bit. And maybe if we don't get Aaron Rodgers back next year, and let's assume that they don't, that's not in their plans. If they don't draft someone next year, maybe one of the young kids that they have on the roster right now that before Rodgers signed was considered to be the successor to the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields combo, will have time to develop. So maybe that was part of the thinking too, is that we have a team good enough to make the playoffs. Maybe Rodgers is the kind of quarterback we have now that can at least let us win a game. And you know what happens in the playoffs. You get hot at the right time and you can go far.
Well, we know Tomlin's a good coach. We know that. Offensively, they've not looked very good for a long time, but he is a good coach and he does know how to win. He knows how to scrap out a win when they look at it and say, "Man, how the hell did they win that game?" But it's him. He knows what the hell he's doing in that regard.
And he has that defensive background. I think was he defensive coordinator at I want to say Kansas City before he got the Pittsburgh job. I'm not quite positive on that. But it was 17, 18 years ago. That's how long he's been in Pittsburgh.
Is there anything else in the NFL or college that you want to talk about, or do we flip over to baseball, cover anything there that you want to bring up?
Well, we just might. I'm going to go back to the thoughts that I sent you. I think it was in an email about the numbers that you pointed out. That OKC is 0-7 ATS on the road in the playoffs, even though they're 4-3 straight up. Indiana 8-4 straight up. and as an underdog in the playoffs. Those numbers compel you to make a strong case for Indiana to cover the points in this game. But I'm looking at it, and I said this before Game 2. I basically said that regardless of what happens in Game 2, I'm likely going to be on OKC in Game 3. I think Indiana had a very small lead early in Game 2. I think they were up by 3. That's most that they led by, and then it was all OKC. So they basically have led by, I'm going to say, less than 4 or 5 minutes out of the 96 minutes that have been played thus far in the first 2 games. OKC was the best team in the league all year. They 68-14, double digits ahead of Indiana. I think won 50 games in the regular season, and I think only Cleveland and Boston were. I think one was 60 and one was 64, something like that. They, with that loss, gave up the home court edge, and we know how important that is. I said before Game 2 that regardless of who won Game 2. I'm almost certain, and I still feel this way because I made a bet when I could get -5 on OKC, that I was going to be on OKC in Game 3 for a couple of reasons. Number one, they did dominate most of the 96 minutes of play. Number two, they have a chance. They were, and I said this before Game 2 without knowing that, of course. But what I thought was they're either going to be going to Indiana looking to regain home court advantage with a 2-1 lead, or looking to avoid going down 0-3. Very favorable spot for OKC. I expect a big effort out of OKC in Game 3. I don't know what I would do in Game 4. Most likely, I would be looking to play Indiana in Game 4. But I'm very comfortable with OK. Would I be shocked if Indiana wins the game, or certainly even just covers the spread? No. And those numbers that you pointed out, the 8-4 straight up and the 0-7 ATS for OKC, would certainly make a case. But I have to believe that OKC, which has shown itself to be extremely capable when put in uncomfortable and unexpected situations, has come through nicely. I have all the respect of the world for Indiana. I did expect the series. I do expect the series to go 6 games, but that was my reasoning for liking OKC tonight. And because they did what I expected them to do in Game 2, which was obviously at home. And now, of course, by the way, this is the only time you're going to have 2 days off between games. Otherwise, it's going to be, they're going to play Thursday, then they're going to play, they're going to play tonight, then they're going to play, not play Thursday, then play Friday, Sunday, and after tonight, they have 2 days off to play, and then they're going to go back to they have 1 day off to play after. I'm going to make it real simple. The 2 days off when they didn't play Monday and Tuesday were the only 2-game stretch during the playoff finals that they're not going to be playing every other day, every 2 days.
Well, let me give you a little bit of an argument. I'm going to ask you a question to begin with.
Sure.
On a neutral floor, if these 2 teams were playing, say, in Dallas on their floor, what would be the price? Neutral floor.
Neutral court. Well, if they're favored by, let's say, an average of 10 points at home, you would figure that they would be favored probably somewhere around 7 on the road, and make it 4 on a neutral site.
Okay, if it's 4 on a neutral, and yet the line on the last game was up to 12.
No, I'm sorry, it'd be the other way around. They would be 7 on a neutral, 4 on the road.
Okay, 7. So 7
on a neutral court.
So basically, their home court, you're saying, is 4.5 or 5 because the line in the last game was 11.5 or 12.
Yeah.
And in the first game, it was similar. So you're basically saying OKC has a 4.5 or 5 point home floor advantage.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you take that off, and now you move it to Indiana, and Indiana's got to get, what, 3, 3.5, 4?
2 or 3.
Okay, so
yeah, if you go with 11 and you take off the 4.5 and then another 4.5 for the home court, you're talking about 2 or 3.
My whole thing is that even though OKC is the better team, and we all see that, it's very obvious they're the better team, that these prices are just too inflated. Now, they did cover.
If you're asking me where the value is in this game, it's very clear. Indiana plus the points. That's where the value is.
Okay.
No question.
Which is what most sharps will do, is they'll go for the value. That's what usually will happen. I'm a value player, but I also will modify that by some types of statistics or trends or momentum issues. But in this case, I don't see that. I just don't see it. I mean, you're asking me to give this team 6 points at home where they've been, and they're going to come with fire. And it's the zigzag. When you lose, you bet the next team. Worked in game 1, went to game 2. Now we're going to game 3. And zigzag has been about a 62 to 65% betting proposition in these playoffs this year. And this also goes back to, we'll talk about it after this game, but the Knicks did a pretty damn good job without any depth on their bench, staying with Indiana for as long as they did. So
I was going to ask you a question about that, about the value, because everybody knows or should know that the value is with Indiana. The lines makers know it. Why did they make it so attractive for the guys who bet the big money, the 5- and 6-figure bets, to take the points that when knowing that they're giving about 2 or 3 more points than normally that you would expect? They have to believe that the public who bets the small money will probably bet Oklahoma City at any number, but you're making it so far attractive to take the points with Indiana. That's a head scratcher. That's why I pause.
Most of the sharps that I talk to, and I talk to several every week, are waiting because they know the public. I mean, these events. I mean, it's the only game in town, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't football season. This is the biggest issue. This is the big betting event until you get maybe to the Open for golf on Thursday. And golf is not bet that much or that deeply by most people. Some of their sharps do very well with it. But yeah, they're betting the public. They know they're going to drive this price. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see 7.
No, I'm talking about why did they open it at as high as they did? What did they open it, 4.5 or 5?
4.5.
Okay, that's still a pretty high number to bet compared to what the number normally would have been, which we said was 2 to 3. So we know that the wise guys, the sharps, know that they're going to get more than the 4.5 at the Open, and we saw that initially. Why did the lines maker make it? In other words, I guess what I'm saying is, why did the lines makers not open it up at the quote true number that it should have been, which is 2.5 and 3? That gives the sharps probably some cause for pause. Do we want to lay a short number with a team that really needs to win this game to get home court advantage, or fall down 0-2, 2 games that they're going to have to win on the road, knowing that the public's going to come in, or at least wait a little bit for that line to go from, say, 2.5. Let's say they opened it at 3. Okay, let's at least let the line go up to 4, 4.5, 5. The public will drive it up, as we already have seen. And so they're making it that much more attractive for the sharps to wait and get a better number, because they're opening it higher than they normally would, knowing which way the public's going to drive it.
All good questions, Andy. I mean, it's a battle between brain trusts, the odds makers, and the sharp bettors.
By the way, my question presumes, and this may not be the case, it's not like the Super Bowl, but I still have to believe that the money wagered by the sharps is going to be significantly greater than the general public money in this game.
I don't know that, because there's so many people that bet. I mean, even if you get several million people betting $50, it adds up to a lot of money.
But you also have a lot of people who are capable of betting the big money on this game, because it is the NBA Finals.
True. It's a good question.
I don't know the answer to it. That's what I'm saying. I don't know any.
I don't either. I do know that
the books probably know the answer, and they're probably not going to share.
You can tell by my conversation here. I think the line's too high, and so you can tell where I'm leaning because of all the things that I've just said, and I think you can see where Andy's leaning.
Yeah.
In baseball,
and by the way, I agree that the line is too high, but that's where my quote intangible situation goes. Now, yes, the most possible position, and I think the books would like it, is Oklahoma City to win the game, Indiana cover the spread. That's probably the best situation for them, because they're going to be paying fewer people who are taking Oklahoma City, taking Indiana plus the points.
Well, it would make me happy too, because I laid the money line.
You got both,
I took the dog on the other. I got more on the dog, but so it would make me very happy if that happened.
See, and I'm waiting for the point because I laid the 5 with OKC. I'm looking for the point during the game where Indiana will be attractive on the money line.
Right, and unless Indiana takes off for,
Yeah,
then you have
unless they're up by 10 at halftime.
right.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, because we're running?
Yeah.
You're okay. We're at 49 minutes. We try to keep it under an hour because we know that people don't want to hang around for too long. But baseball is baseball. I mean, it's just it's a grind every day. You're trying to find different angles, what to do, what to bet, how to beat it. And the good thing is there's a lot of ways to do that, as opposed to the old days where you could only bet the side or total. But now there's a lot of ways to do it. And looking at, I think we gave you the tips on the first 5. You're betting pitchers you like. You bet the first 5. You betting pitchers that you don't like. You're betting full game and probably going over.
Now here's a dilemma that I have in one of tonight's games. Okay, Yankees at Kansas City. I'm not sure how you pronounce the name. Bubik, the starter for Kansas City. Yep. He's in the Cy Young conversation. He's having an outstanding season. Okay, he's going up against Clark Schmidt of the Yankees, who's been a very ordinary pitcher, and certainly the numbers don't match up. Bubik probably gets to go 6-7 innings in this game unless the Yankees just explode, which they certainly can do. They did yesterday against that young kid Cameron, who'd been pitching very well. But I do like Bubik in this game. The question is, do I like him for the first 5 or do I like him for the entire game? And the reason I say that is, according to my analysis of the way I do bullpens, KC has one of the better bullpens in the league. So they might be able to preserve a 7-inning lead despite the potency of the Yankee bats. So maybe what I do is maybe I split the bet and maybe I play Kansas City for the first 5 and Kansas City for the full game. And make, let's say take a 1-unit wager and split it in half.
Okay, I would actually was going to suggest something like that, but I also would bet the Yankees first 5 under.
Okay.
Because I think that's
Yankees under their team total. You mean?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. This is what I'm talking about. You can take one game and dissect it into little parts, and say, okay, where's the edge in this little part? Don't look at the whole picture, because you can win little parts and segments of a game now with all these options of how to bet. So I'd say Yankees first 5 under their team total. They're not going to. If Bubik stays on course with what he's doing, the Yankees are going to have a hard time in the first 5 innings, which is 2 times through the lineup, to get to him very much. Now, when you get into the 3rd time through the lineup, those kind of numbers do change. So now you get into the other issues. So I like Bubik. I like the first 5. I like KC for the whole game. And I like first 5 under Yankee team total. However, the one thing that I would say, because Kansas City has such a good bullpen, they might all be 3 equal bets. If the Kansas City bullpen was not that good, I would probably do a half a bet on any full game on Kansas City. But
I probably, if their bullpen was not that good, I wouldn't even consider the full game on Kansas City.
Correct.
I would just make it a full unit. Even with an average bullpen, I might go with Kansas City. But with a poor bullpen, I definitely wouldn't. And in fact, with a poor bullpen, I might consider the game over. Now, the total as it is last I saw it, maybe down a little bit. I saw it open at 9, which is still a pretty high total for a Kansas City pitcher. But maybe that does suggest that Kansas City will their advantages will be in the first 5 innings of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that nine's well big. The only reason the 9's there is because of the pitcher for the other side. The Yankee pitcher doesn't look that strong, and if form holds, this is definitely Kansas City. The 3 bets that we just talked about.
Yeah,
that's anything else out there? I mean, that you see on the card today.
Well, we got a lot of day games today. So that was one of the few night games. I mean, I did like one of the early games that actually will have already started, so I don't know what the results are. But no, I'm sorry. It starts at 10:05, which is well, almost about 10 minutes from now. So the folks won't be able to do it, but they can at least monitor it, because here's what I'm looking at: Brown and Luzardo, both of whom are in bad form. One, Brown for the Cubs, Luzardo for the Phillies. Luzardo really started out strongly, had a good, decent effort in his last time out, but his previous efforts have been really poor. I think he had a decent effort last time out. His numbers for his last 3 games are not very good, and I'm wondering if somehow there's an injury there that may not have been diagnosed, because he was pitching like a Cy Young candidate for his first 5 or 6 starts, and then really fallen down. So I did make a play on the over in this game. I made it earlier this morning, over 9. It's a day game. Now, the one concern I have, and what sort of gave me a little bit of a pause here, but for the pitcher, Brown, who's not been sharp, he's got an ERA in the mid-5s for the full season and over his last 3. I think he's made 8 or 9 starts. But Philadelphia's not been hitting the ball lately. I think they've been held to 1 run in 5 of their last 7 games or something like that. And they hit maybe 3 of their last 7. They've not been hitting. Of course, Harper is on the injured list right now. But there are some other bats. I mean, even a guy like Schwarber had that lengthy on-base streak, and Real Muto. So there's some Turner. There's some good bats there. So I did play over in that one. So I did take a look at that, but part of it was looking at the matchup of 2 struggling pitchers. Another game that starts in about an hour or so, Atlanta and Milwaukee. Schwellenbach for Atlanta. Milwaukee has this kid Patrick, who's I think a rookie this year. They're both pitching very, very well. I looked at the total in this one. I believe it's under 4 for the first 5. Let's monitor that. Haven't played it yet. I want to see if it'll go up a little bit. I'm not quite sure it will. I want to see what the VIG is. And at 8. So I'm looking to maybe do a split play on that one. I've got about an hour to decide on that one. In fact, actually, the total is now down to 7.5 on the full game, which probably cut back a little bit on the side of the play, on the size of the play, because 4-3 still wins. 7-7, those odd numbers, 7, 9 are very key numbers, because you're talking about, well, 8 is a bad number, 4-4, and same thing with 10, 5-5 could end up ruining you, but a 1-run game. So those are the ones that I was looking at. If I was looking at anything else, maybe Robbie Ray is having a rebirth in his career. He's pitching in a game tonight. Starts at 5:40 Pacific, 8:40 Eastern at Colorado, going up against Freeland, who has been average this year compared to some of his past seasons where he was getting hit all over the place. Ray has been pitching tremendously. You do have to lay a price, -135, to lay the 1.5 on that one. But Colorado playing a little bit better. But Ray right now is probably putting up one of the top 5 seasons in the National League as far as starting pitchers go.
Yeah. As far as that Atlanta game, I did bet the first 5 under Atlanta, Milwaukee.
Yeah.
In that game. I did get under 4 in that. And I think 4 is a key number, because, it's really tough to.
See, if there are 2 outstanding pitchers, okay, let's say, I don't know, Max Fried against Skubal, probably the top 2 pitchers in the American League right now. First 5 innings. If the total is 3.5, I'll consider betting the under. If the total is 3, as it might be, because the total in the game could be 6.5 or 7, I'll pass. I will not bet under the number 3. 3.5, I will, because you can still win if the game lands 3. If the line is 3, it has to be 0, 1, or 2. That's too tough to beat.
When I'm dealing with over and unders in the first 5, 3, well, 3.5. Betting under 3 is really difficult. 3.5 or 4. I'm looking for high strikeout rates.
Yeah,
because strikeout means there's no contact.
High strikeout rates, and also if that's accompanied by, I would say, whips under 1. Less than 1 base runner per inning. So you're not in position of putting a 2-run homer at the plate.
You also might look for a pitcher that throws a lot of ground ball stuff, so the ball stays in the ballpark.
Double plays.
Yeah. So there's different things you can look at. It's a lot of hard work in baseball, but there is money to be made, and fortunately, that's worked out pretty well over the years. But that's it, Andy. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll do our. Well, we have different names for this: money management, bankroll management, positive EV, don't go broke. It's just whatever it is. We talk about all that. We'll get into some stuff.
Maybe we'll consider bankroll on steroids.
Growing it on steroids. That would be
in honor of baseball.
All right, Andy. Thank you very much.
Been a
Good
pleasure.
show. Everybody out there, good luck and have a great day. And we'll talk to you again soon.